Welcome back to the Daughters of the Moon podcast. We're grateful that you can join us for another week.
We sure are.
And today we have a special guest, Masami Covey. Masami is an acclaimed speaker and writer, experienced health intuitive, somatic practitioner, functional nutritional therapy practitioner, yoga therapist, and a faculty member of the Shift Network. She believes that we are each on our own primary healer. She offers a dynamic framework for connecting our subtle body language with physiology, anatomy, emotion, nutrition, and lifestyle practices. She embraces the power of both scientific knowledge and focused intuition to reveal the interconnectedness of body, mind, and spirit. Masami provides highly personalized health support for all ages, applying the foundations of nutritional science, hair tissue, mineral analysis, yoga therapy, breathwork, and Ayurveda. Oh, I think I said it right that time. She and her husband, Chris, developed Zenshin method, a whole person approach that empowers individuals to become experts of themselves and shine as who they are. Masami was born and raised in Japan in a bicultural family, and she draws extensively from her blend of East meets West cultural, linguistic, and energy healing experience. So welcome to our podcast.
Well, thank you for having me. This is so exciting. And we get to talk about the moon, and I get to be with two beautiful women. That are like sisters. They're not mother and daughter. They're like sisters.
Yeah, we just trick people like that. No, I'm kidding. But thank you. Yes. Yes, and the moon. And I love your picture. That is very, very beautiful picture. I love how it connects like the moon and then the feminine energies with it.
Beautiful.
Love it. I'm glad that I could switch it out for this occasion.
She switches all it for us. Another nice background, so thank you.
Yeah. And so I guess for us, like we I guess we'll say that for us, we chose the name Daughters of the Moon because we feel a very big connection to the moon, and because we have an indigenous background, we felt that connection as well. And we felt that we were all daughters of the moon. So that was how our name came to be, and the power that we draw. And we do a lot of full moon ceremonies and things like that just to draw in that energy as well. So how do you connect with the moon?
I just love that you are bringing in the indigenous wisdom also into this, because it's one of those wisdoms that been lost, in terms, not lost, but maybe slightly put away, let's say, for all of us. For women, we can connect with the moon cycles quite a bit more regularly, but what ended up happening for me with the moon was that, moon was in the background for me. It wasn't a forefront at all. So I've been doing this kind of like intuitive, health-oriented work. I've been my own entrepreneur, own business owner for coming up on 25 years now.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. I know it's not easy to own your own business and be your boss. It sounds all lovely, but there's a lot that goes into it. But the moon started really strongly speaking to me, to the point that I was just like, okay, let me sleep, let me sleep at night. It's like, you got so much to say. So she just really started to talk to me. And it was around the time that I was wrapping up with perimenopause, and I was actually going into menopause. And then I'm technically, it's post-menopausal, you could call it that, but let's just call it menopausal. I'm assuming we're kind of all menopausal women here, right? Yeah. So around that time, she just started to talk to me all the time. So we just started having this back and forth. And then what generally happens for me is that, okay, well, so the universe is asking me to really dig into the rhythm of the moon, rhythm of her cycles, and then how's that impacting my life and then my clients' lives. And then that led me to actually learn about these teachings from Japan, where I'm from. And that's based on Chinese medicine. And each phase of the moon actually corresponds with different sets of organs, yin and yang organs of your body. So I started to dig deeper into it. I started practicing it to myself. I started to teach this as courses, and started to widely talk about it. And more I talked about it, the more she as in the moon, wanted to get involved in this whole journey. And so I'm in the process finally to, I'm setting kind of a, deadlines and things like that. Because if you're an entrepreneur, nobody's going to set the deadline for you. So I'm putting a deadline in writing this book because I really want to teach how to support menopausal women with reclaiming the lunar moon cycles and the rhythm. And because I started to notice that most women that I work with are like little bit like they lost the connection somehow, since they don't have the monthly cycles anymore, because most of the women I work with are menopausal and older, and they just feel uprooted almost. They don't feel like they can belong again into the cycles. And not only the Western culture of where we emphasize so much of the younger age and looking younger and being vital. And then as you go into menopause and then you're seen as, oh, you're just hormonal, and then the doctors would just tell you, you're just hormonal, this is just how it is. And then from here onward, it's downhill. And then I was like, I refuse to believe that, I refuse to believe that. And so that desire to not want to get completely dismissed or disengaged from the rest of the world, I started to engage with the moon, and that got me back into the rhythm of things. And I'm speaking to a lot of these women that are just connecting with what I'm saying. They're like, I feel the same way. I feel like I lost that connection. The one rhythmic thing that I had in my life, whether a lot of women would say, well, it was painful, PMS was horrible, this and that. I didn't grow up in that culture, just so my first period, my mother made the Japanese rice dish that to celebrate your, womanhood, that kind of thing was celebrated in the Japanese culture. So I didn't grow up cursing at my monthly rhythm. I didn't. But
that's great. That's beautiful.
As you lose that, you feel like you're just kind of left on your own. And that's how I kind of got into the moon. I had no idea that this was going to be my second half of my life. I'll stop there, but I'm so enthusiastic about the moon because she is my guiding light. She truly is she reflects things back to me. She challenges me. She says, dig deeper. She says, why aren't you living with the cycles when I, veer off into something else and I get caught up in other things? She pulls me back. And
nice.
So it's a really wonderful, like a mother-daughter relationship that I have with her now.
Beautiful.
That is really beautiful. And I think it's so true. And I think because, the moon moves the water on the earth. And so our bodies are 80% water. So it makes sense that she would talk to us and bring us information if we're quiet enough to listen, I suppose, because I think too often we're rushing through our lives so much that we can't hear the whispers of the moon anymore.
Exactly. So. And, we are actually at the molecular level and the plasma level, we are 99% water. We're not like a water that you're drinking, in a glass, that kind of a water, but it's more of a gel-like form. We're like aloe vera gel inside, and that's the structured water that is going through us. And the moon communicates through that water. It has the power to move the ocean water. So how could it not move your inner water, right? Yes. So it's just a matter of really trusting that you've always known that. And are we going to wait around for the scientists to come around and tell you, yeah, you've been right for 10,000 years? Like, no, I'm not going to wait around for that. This is proven enough. Nature does it. Whenever I go up to the mountains and I see how the birds operate or insects operate, or even how the trees communicate with one another, depending on the cycles of the moon, if you start to pay attention to it, it's happening everywhere. But even the insects and birds and animals are getting kind of confused because of the extreme level of lights that we use, especially LED lights, are so confusing to a lot of living beings, including ourselves, that it's confusing our production of our melatonin as well, because the melatonin production is very much connected to the moon cycles. But because we have light all the time, 24/7, if you live by the city, you're just never going to experience the darkness, which is such a key to our lives. So, let me just veer off a little bit, and why the moon cycle is so important is that moon isn't always about the illuminating, beautiful full moon and a super full moon, right? There's this such thing as the dark moon and the new moon. That period is so important for menopausal women, because that's when a lot of healing can actually take place. And in the darkness is when we can actually begin to heal our cells, our tissues, our own traumas, our ancestral healing can happen in that darkness. But we don't live based on that anymore, right? We live 24/7, 365 days per year in light. So, I think this is why a lot of us are conscious and waking up, and we are noticing the different frequencies coming into this earth. We are aware that the moon is beginning to talk to us more and more and more, that more than ever before. So, if you are noticing that about yourself, you're kind of drawn to conversations around moon, you're on the right path. You're being called back to the rhythm of things, to the river of life. So, it's not just about looking at the sky and looking at the cycles, but it's really how that's impacting our cellular health, our production of, like I said, melatonin, the healing abilities, digestibilities, trauma healing. I truly believe, after years and years of working with clients, touched thousands of bodies and still continue to work with thousands of people. I noticed that a lot of people are working on their traumas, their own personal traumas, maybe past life traumas, maybe karmic issues. But if you don't cycle that with the moon cycles, then the healing can be very, in times, detrimental, because the trauma work can become very detrimental to your health because you're doing it at the wrong time of the cycles.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with that. I know I love in the summer, we get out camping a lot. And so it's great because we're out, there is no lights. It's, you have your nice little campfire, but you are kind of going with those cycles. And so it's quite funny because I find on a day-to-day basis, maybe you don't go to bed as early, but when you're out in that kind of atmosphere and really tapping into the nature and into that cycle, yeah, you do go to bed early because it's dark out and your body says, okay, I'm tired now. So
there's no clocks.
Yeah. And I agree with you. Like, this light that we've brought into our lives is wonderful and it's helpful, but at the same time, it's so detrimental to us as well.
Yeah. And then I think we can no longer ignore that, the detrimental side of living with light always, and not knowing the yin and yang. We're just all going at it. It's like everything has to be bright and shiny. And I call it, even in the spiritual communities, of like, we're getting too addicted to light seeking and ascension seeking. And it can be very detrimental to our system when we ignore the darkness. And the moon teaches us to go to the dark side of the moon. It's teaching us to go into the shadow side of who we are. When you start to study archetypes and things like that, archetypes are not all about light seeking. It's about understanding the shadow side of who you are too. And that's what moon is very clear about that, and that's why it has the cycles with it. So it's, even in the spiritual communities, I warn people not to be such light seekers and only focus on light, because if we don't understand the depth of the darkness, I don't think we can fully experience the expansiveness of the light either.
Yeah, it's a balance, right? And I think that's what I love about the moon, is because it has that dark side, it has that that light side. It's the symbol of the yin and yang, really, with the dark and light into it. And just us as people of, yeah, everything's not rainbows and sunshine all the time. There is that dark side. And, I think we become more joyous and light because we recognize the dark side and we go inwards to find what we need to get through it.
Yeah.
I lived up in the mountains too for a while, and my God, talk about majestic, beautiful, and there's just nothing like it. If you get a chance to experience it, for anybody, it's worth it, because you really get to see it, right in front of your face all the time. And wow, when I hear people say, yeah, you get used to them. How? Like how? I mean, they're just, they're beautiful. And that's where we get. So when I'm in the mountains, I've got the energy is like, wow, it's abundant. There's just so much nature around you. It's you can't replace it with anything else. You just can't. It's amazing. Yeah.
But more and more people are living in the cities now. So, it's just, you almost have to make a point of packing up your bags for the weekend or something and explore, but expose your children, our next generations that are going to be inheriting this earth and the moon cycles, to know and to appreciate that, because so many kids just have no exposures to nature. And
That's so true.
so they are fearful. We've created fear around nature, right?
Yeah.
Nature is not to be feared, but in fact, we should fear more of the concrete, concrete and buildings, and these LED lights are shining all day long. And then 5Gs and magnetic fields and electromagnetic fields, EMFs are just coming through our bodies all day, and we should fear that. But a lot of people actually fear camping in the darkness under the stars. Like right now when we're doing this, we just had that glorious new moon and the solar eclipse, and the power of the moon was palpable. It was just, you could taste it, you can hear it, you can hold that power of the moon, even though the sun is what 4,000 times bigger than the moon. I don't know. I don't exactly remember. But to line up so perfectly from the earth to the moon to the sun, and the moon, the new moon had that ability, that had the capacity to hide that sun from completely shining to this earth. And at Colorado, where I live, we had about 80% of the solar eclipse that we could watch. And even
nice.
Tremendous changes in the neighborhood. Like you can feel the change in the temperature. Everything changes to all the sun, like in almost like a nighttime feeling in the middle of the morning. It's just, there's just interesting thing that happens, but that power was done by the moon aligning perfectly in that straight line. So, I think the moon yearns to come back to the earth, and the earth has the same desire to kind of be reunited. So we have this kind of distant love affair, as earthlings to the moon. Moon is always calling on us, but we're also equally reaching for her existence. And that's why we have this really interesting relationship with the moon. The only thing that circles around us. Well, why? Right? There are many, many, many theories out there, but the scientific theory is that the part of the earth chipped, and then that became the moon. And so composition of the moon is very similar to what we have on this earth. And the minerals that we require in the bodies to live is same as the mineral contents you find in the moon. So, we just cannot ignore the existence of that bigger cosmic level ebb and flow, the waxing and waning kind of energy. And to ignore that will be a very ignorant thing to do.
I think there's so many teachings from the moon that have come like I know from our lineage, like there's the stories and there's just so much knowledge when we sit and listen. And I like to think of it as when I'm watching the moon or I'm, you know, learning more and more about it and like our cycles and how us as women, you know, a lot of times if we aren't sure of our cycle, if we kind of try to make it go in with the moon, that helps us, especially as we become perimenopausal and menopausal, to adapt to that kind of a cycle. There's
Yes.
such energy in that.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, right. And then just to kind of give the audience a little bit of idea of how to connect with that if you're in perimenopause and menopause and postmenopause, because it looks like maybe 3 of us will cover all that, you know, that I just mentioned. But generally, if you can look at it from new moon to about the full moon as the time when the estrogen is slowly building up in your body. And that's a beautiful time to pay attention to the suppleness of your skin, maybe your hair, you know. So how I work is that I work as a function. So where do we get cut off?
Okay, so you're telling us about when the new moon to the full moon sort of thing.
Yeah.
Pyramid,
Yeah,
how we are.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, let me know if I'm cutting off or something, and then we'll
Well,
repeat it.
how do we get you?
Yeah, well, we'll repeat it because then you know, maybe that's the topic that we need to talk a little bit more.
Okay.
So the new moon to the full moon, we want to pay attention to the estrogen production in the body, right? The estrogen is what keeps us juicy. You know, it's what lubricates us. It makes our skin supple and makes you look younger. It's basically what estrogen is doing for all of us. But as we go into menopause and postmenopause, we are producing less and less estrogen. So during the new moon to the full moon, you want to support that part of your body. And so taking things that are supportive of that, certain oils like flaxseed oil can be really, really supportive of that time. And then from the full moon to the new moon, you're going to slowly go and start to support your progesterone side of yourself. And progesterone is really key to your brain health as well. I mean, estrogen is very important for your brain health as well as the your gut health as well. So if you're having any digestive issues, if you're having any kind of a irritable bowel syndrome or Crohn's disease, or, you know, any kind of a autoimmune conditions that can stem from the gut issues, gut lining, you do want to support your estrogen there too. But, you know, let's say, look at the progesterone side. The progesterone is a key for, I call them the yin hormone. So the estrogen is more like a yang, you know, so, and then the yin side, progesterone, is also like a Zen garden, makes you really even keel, you know, like the moods are not up and down too much. You feel kind of like relaxed and you can surrender to the universe a little bit more easily. So I say, and if you're, so here's the tricky part, isn't it? That if you don't understand these cycles, and then let's say you're so caught up in, okay, I must meditate. Okay, I have to do mindfulness every day, you know, and you do mindfulness 365 days a year. Okay, so with any changes in between, let's say, okay, you do the same kind of meditation, you just have to become aware. Well, the thing is, when the estrogen is getting build up, and that's when you want to really support the estrogen. This is when you get creative with things. This is when you're a little more vocal about things. You're going to speak up about stuff. You're going to, you know, get yourself excited about trying new things. So should you be doing, you know, sit down, don't talk, quiet your mind, your monkey mind, and you just settle down, and you try to tell yourself to do that while the estrogen is going, and the moon cycles is saying, no, we got some creative juice flowing for you. We're waxing on the light onto you, and let's go out and speak to other people, you know, like, so we're doing the podcast at the right time, right? Because we are talking when the light is getting added on. This is perfect. Right. But let's say, you know, so should you be doing the same kind of meditation during that time? The answer is most likely no. Okay. But let's say if you go from the after the full moon, give yourself a couple days of the full moon energy has settled down a little bit, and then the light is starting to wane and you're starting to go towards the dark moon period. That's a fantastic time to go into maybe silent retreat for yourself. Maybe that's when you just light the candle, dim the lights, really enjoy the evening darkness. Maybe take a nice salt bath to detox a little bit more. That's a beautiful time to do some of the detoxing kind of thing, because progesterone is coming up. Like I said, progesterone is like a yin hormone, but also it's like a Zen garden kind of a hormone. Relaxes your mind. It's very helpful for healing your brain if you got some inflammation in the brain. So you can kind of see how I put these things together. So it's not just about looking at the moon and say, isn't this beautiful? Look at the full moon, but it's like, yeah, but there's this cycle going on inside you and we've got to learn this stuff more, so that's where I think my kind of work comes in. And this is why I've been asked by so many women to write this book, because they're like, I need the book.
Yes.
So we can follow it with you. And I want to make this into like a movement. It's like a big movement where menopausal women get together and we are supporting one another's hormonal cycles, different meditations, different times to work on maybe strengthening versus different time of the moon cycles to think about detox and cleanse. So many people just do cleanse whenever, and they're not looking at the moon cycles. No, you need to look at the moon cycles. Where's the moon? Is that moon going to be supportive of your liver detox? And oftentimes they're just randomly doing it. It's a very masculine approach to a very feminine body, right?
It is.
Yeah, it absolutely is. I can't wait to read your book also, because I think I think there's a lot of wisdom in that and a lot of teaching for people to understand, because I don't even think, like, as you were talking, I was like, oh, okay, that make some changes that I need to make with that, because yeah, you're right. Like for me, I do the same thing every day. And now that makes me think, okay, I want to know about that. Am I really benefiting all the ways that I can of myself by doing that practice that way? And if I make these shifts and changes, that will shift and change me as a person into where I'm going and how I show up in the world. So I really loved what you said with that, and even with the detoxing and things like that, because I think you're right. People are not conscious of when we should be doing these things that would actually benefit us in a healthier and more beneficial way.
Right. I mean, seasonally, we have to live based on the seasons. And within the seasons, we are gifted with these cycles of, 29.5 days, new moon to new moon, So it's that we are nature. We are not just this animal body, human body, but we are the nature itself. So when we live against it, number one, whatever you are trying to do is going to backfire on you, or it probably won't work as well. So a lot of people get frustrated, but when I look at their schedule and I look at what they're trying to do, and I go, yeah, maybe we should just hold off on doing so much trauma work when we're heading towards the full moon, because maybe that's not when we want to be doing the release work here. So things like that if you just start to pay attention to that, you can begin to say, oh, wow, I really been pushing that. And no wonder I feel so exhausted by the end of this month that I've been just doing this program every day. So same thing can be said about maybe, let's say, yoga practices. Let's say I'm a yoga therapist too. So you can kind of look at when should you be doing more strength oriented kind of a yoga practices, like let's say warrior pose series, where you're working on your thighs and your glutes, and those are great muscles to be working on. But should you be really pushing yourself to do that during the time when the moon is starting to wane? and, starting to settle into the darkness? The answer is no. The answer is no. You should not be doing a hot yoga class and sweating to death and doing the same poses every day, every week of the month. No, we have to have cycles that are coming through in every aspects of who we are.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
I told women to just stop worrying about if you don't sleep 2 days before the full moon and the 2 days after the full moon, just stop stressing about it. There are billions of other women on this earth that are having the same middle of the night, full moon, awakening moments. So let's just reach out energetically to one another and maybe receive the guidance from the moon, because I just kind of gave up on having a really good night of sleep around the full moon. It's just not going to happen for me. And the melatonin production scientifically have been proven that melatonin production goes down right around that time anyway. So why are we fighting against biology and physiology and cosmology, right?
Yeah.
So that's when grab yourself a nice journal next to you. And if you could get some snooze here and there, that's great. But let's not get so frustrated about it, because so many women are frustrated that they're not sleeping every day perfectly every day of the year. And that's not possible, number one. And when it doesn't, maybe take a look at where's the cycle of the moon right now. What's happening with the moon? Oh, I see the moon is wanting to talk to me. Okay, so she is waking me up so that we can have this deep conversations from our heart centers. That might be, it's a gift, it could be. So that has helped me a lot, really, personally, to not get so stuck in having this like a perfect rhythm, of waking up at the same time, going to bed at the same time, and having the perfect sleep every night and having perfect poop every morning. It's like, they're cycles. And when the moon is darkening, we too tend to be a little more dehydrated. So you might experience a little more constipation, to be honest with you. And so it's okay. It's, I think that's what I have been changing. I'm growing with my work as well, to be a little more kind towards myself and not be so regimented and needing to have everything so aligned in perfection, based on what? Does the nature always grow forever? Does your, trees, maple trees in your backyard, do they just grow and grow all day long, every day, 365 days a year? No,
they don't. No, they don't.
No. We go into shedding, we go into fallow, when we let the earth rest. And so there's that component also. So I think the winter moon is very different than a spring moon. And the moon in the summer has different message for us than the harvesting moon in the fall, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So do you think it would be beneficial for somebody like to kind of just journal, write down sort of some of their activities that they do, some of the foods they eat, some of the things they're experiencing, and then try to look at the correlation between what that is and the moon, and then maybe step into it a little bit where they can learn which ones, where they should be doing more of these activities to balance themselves out?
Yeah, I would say that's a must. Our ancestors have always done that, right? Maybe they put carvings on the stones to indicate, especially things like 2 times per year, we have the eclipses. I think the eclipses are really fundamental that we pay attention to, because it can really throw off our systems, our biological systems. And it was something that our ancestors didn't quite understand why it was happening. They eventually figured out the rhythm of it. They started to let us know, the future generations, that, at this time, every 18 years, you're going to experience this kind of a combination of the solar and the lunar eclipse. And so they let us know. But at the beginning of all this, which we all inherited their energetic fields and their frequencies, is that it was a very fearful, very kind of a scary, scary events that would happen. Like they felt like the world was going to end, you know, so that fear is definitely there. So I recommend for anyone that's listening to this, in between the solar eclipse and the lunar eclipse, be sure to address some of your kind of an innate and almost like a reptilian part of the brain's fear and anxiety and stress, because it does impact our brainstem. So you may experience things like cold extremities, because, you know, when we're in fight or flight, you know, we shuttle energy to the muscles, but we will pull back on some of the vital energies from going into different organs and systems, right? So you can actually experience body temperature dropping, the neck pain, maybe shoulder pain. It's all the signs of the fear and anxieties and nervous energy can show up on our bodies without us even recognizing it, even though you're just going about doing your daily things. And you might say, well, solar eclipse isn't happening where I live, so what does it matter? Lunar eclipse, I can't see it where I live, so why does it matter? It does matter because it's a global issue. It's a global phenomena that we all really do need to pay attention to. And to be honest with you, like I said, when I started this conversation with you two, that I didn't pay that much attention. I really didn't, until the moon reached into me and shook my body and said, when are you going to listen to me? And that's when I was full on perimenopause, and I basically went into menopause. And if I didn't have her guidance, I don't know what would have happened to my own menopausal journey. I think it would have been a mess. But the fact is, I really enjoy this menopausal body now. I am so delighted that I am in the second half of my life now, fully. I'm loving it. And I would say one of the biggest reasons that I am so delighted to be in the second half of my life is because of the moon. Bless you. Yeah. Moon said, I'm with you. You just need to turn around and listen to me. And I was like, okay, I woke up. Sorry about that. I missed it. I was not paying, because I talked a lot about circadian rhythm with people, because the circadian rhythm is extremely important. When's the sun coming up? Do you get the sunlight? Do you expose your eyes to the sun? That's going to be very helpful for your brain health. That's going to be very important for your microbial health, you know, your skin health, everything. So I paid a lot of attention to the solar rhythm. And the solar rhythm is a key to human body's health. But I kind of didn't pay attention to lunar cycles, to be honest with you. So, you know, it's a new territory for me. I've been paying attention to it for about 3.5 years now. And I will recommend it to everybody. Go by like lunar cycle, you know, calendars, or just, you can even do it on your Google Calendar or whatever Apple Calendar you have. You can plug those things in there. And eventually, once you get used to when the new moon and the full moon is, start there, you know, because it can get really complicated. Okay. Maybe not complicated, but it's like there are layers to this. What I'm sharing is such a beginning stage of what I have been discovering, right? But it's taking me 3.5 years to get to this point of understanding what it is to live with the moon on the physiological level and a biological level. But start with when the new moon is, and start with when the full moon is, and just pay attention to what's happening around people around me, the environment, to my body, maybe 2 days before the new moon, and in the new moon, and in the 2 days after the new moon. That's where you start. And then you add on the full moon. And then you do that for about 6 months, maybe a year. Then you begin to add on the half moon, you know, the first quarter moon and the last half moon. I mean, those are powerful, powerful times as well. But they are powerful in the body too, but it's also psychically, they're very powerful. So I say maybe leave that aside for a little bit if you're new to this kind of information. Just don't worry about the half moon point yet. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's Great
It is good,
information.
good information.
And I think, that gives the listeners too something to work with. And I agree. Small stages, right? Because if you become too overwhelmed with it, then you lose something with it. But, these small, just taking, 2 parts of the moon and just dealing with that to start with. And like you said, peel back the onion layers of it as you go on and get more comfortable with it is a great thing.
And because she's never going to go away, she's going to always be with us for a while. She is moving away from us by tiny, degrees every year, I guess, according to NASA. But that connection is going to remain. And, so maybe, since maybe this might be helpful again. So I'll give you a couple more things you can do in terms of, since my focus is menopause in women, basically having menopausal women reclaim the cycles within, right? So I'll just give you a couple more things you can do to support from a couple of days after the new moon to the full moon-ish. That's, like I said, the estrogen period. And we're taught to fear estrogen. The moment I use the word estrogen, and if you're not up to date with the science and then what's coming out in the world, you might be like, oh my gosh, estrogen, we're supposed to fear estrogen. That's not true. Okay. Estrogen is the oldest hormone on earth. Okay. It's the oldest hormone that we've ever been gifted with. Well, why would we have estrogen? Is it because we're supposed to vilify that? No, we're supposed to embrace that. It's just estrogen has these components of, it's called xenoestrogen, which comes from chemicals, plastics, forever chemicals that are a part of like our furnitures, our new carpets, new paint. All these things can really disrupt our innate, beautiful estrogen. So please don't fear estrogen. We want to support the estrogen. We just don't want to support the forever chemicals and endocrine disrupting compounds. It's called so these are like I said, it's like a pet plastic stuff, right? But also it could be medications. It could be terrible, like unfiltered water. I mean, these things are horrible. So they can really mess up your estrogen, right? But you want to support the beauty of you as a feminine body in this estrogen rich body. And estrogen is, like I said, it's really helpful for your brain, just as progesterone too, but it's important for your gut. And it's very helpful for immune system. It's very immune protective. So it's important that we talk about this as Northern Hemisphere would go into the colder season. And inevitably, we're all going to be exposed to more viruses and other bacteria, and then, flu season and things like that. So supporting the estrogen, number one, stop drinking water out of a plastic water. If you're still doing that, please stop today. That's a number one way that you can support your estrogen. Right. Immune protective. So it's protective to autoimmune conditions as well. And I'm very vocal about the autoimmune support because I was diagnosed with MS it was about 15 years ago. So, I went through tremendous stress with that and I couldn't walk anymore. And this is why I'm passionate about helping other women, because women tend to experience autoimmune conditions more than men. But I'm starting to see that there is a connection between increase in autoimmune conditions and increase in the not so good estrogen level and decrease in the good estrogen level. Okay. So, to support the estrogen, you want to make sure that like I said, you're not putting in more of the toxic materials into your bodies. You're not using toxic makeup, right? I mean, all these things that we already know, but it's good to be reminded of. And hydration is important. Sunlight is important for getting the estrogen up. It's really important that you eat clean, organic foods, non-GMO foods, and making sure that you're digesting them and getting some of those good oils. I love using things like flaxseed oil. Like I said, I love sunflower oils that are like a capsule form. Also pumpkin seed oil. Those things are really great, but get the organic, maybe the the ones that's been sprouted kind of a thing. Those will be wonderful. Estrogen helps with our collagen production. Who does not want that, right? For our hair.
Yeah, we did.
Right. Yeah. So really see what you can do to help yourself like that, and then raise that estrogen level by, number one, removing things that are harmful to the estrogen. And then like at the progesterone level, it's also, and then getting your blood test done can be really helpful too. And some of the supplements that I use for my clients, and you can get that kind of information from my website too, masamicovey.com, just my name, and you can find it. But certain supplements like B vitamins are very, very important for balancing your estrogen and your testosterone, but also your progesterone as well. So B6, so important. And if you've ever been on birth control pills at any time in your life, which I have, everybody was put on birth control pills, right?
Yep.
Then I will guarantee you that you have a lower dose of B6 in your body and you require more B6. And you can add more B1 into it also. But B6, B1 combinations are fantastic for supporting both estrogen and progesterone. But like I said, if you've ever been on any form of birth control pills, whether it's a pill form or you had a thing put into your body and things like that, you really need to pay attention to the B vitamins, B1 and B6. And another thing that's very helpful for supporting both estrogen, but particularly progesterone, is zinc. Zinc is something that you get. Yeah, I mean, you're nodding. So
Yeah.
I hope you're taking some of these things too, but the zinc is really low on most people, most women. And most women begin to lose our muscles as we get older. In our 40s, we begin to slowly lose our muscles. And when we lose the muscles, we're not only harming our postures, and it could be detrimental to your bone densities because your bones require that kind of a muscles protecting, but the density of the muscles can help with the density of the bones as well. They kind of go hand in hand, but that can go out the window. So supporting your zinc level is very helpful for your muscles as well. It's called sarcopenia. Sarcopenia is the loss of the muscles as you get older. And that's going to plague almost all of us women. And I'm a small person, so I have to be careful probably more than most people. I've got the Japanese grandmother's, body. My grandmother was like 4'8", tiny, 80 pounds, I'm not that small, but I'm a very small person. So I have to be careful and make sure that the zinc level's up. And one of the ways that you can actually connect with your own zinc level, that you don't have to go to the doctor to get blood tests or anything like that to know, is to invest in just a liquid zinc that you can get at a grocery stores or supplement stores and things like that, or online you can purchase them. It's a liquid zinc. I use it for babies and little kids too, because they can't take the tablets. So that I have mothers give them these little liquid zincs that are diluted down to, I believe don't quote me on it, but I think it's about 3 to 5%. So it's a very much diluted liquid zinc. But what you do is you get them, it costs you less than $10 in most cases. Okay. And then you bring it back home and then you do a little swish test. And what that is that you put little liquid zinc, about a tablespoon, maybe a little bit more, in your mouth, and you swish inside your mouth. Don't swallow yet, but you swish it for about 7 to 10 seconds inside your mouth. Then go ahead and swallow. There's nothing wrong with swallowing the liquid zinc, because I use it for little babies too, to get their zinc level up, right? So if you have colicky babies, liquid zinc is really wonderful because they're having a hard time digesting mother's milk. Side note, the mother's milk is about 50% saturated fat. So the babies have a little harder time digesting at times. That means also that baby's most likely a little low on zinc. So that's how you can kind of help out. But let's say you twist it.
That's to know. That's to know.
Yeah. And then you swallow that zinc afterwards, right? And then you say to yourself, it didn't taste like anything to me. It tasted like water. And some people say, oh, it had a little sweetness to it. then what that means is that you are very low on zinc.
Really, the sweetness is there.
Sweetness or nothingness. It just tastes like
Nothing.
water. So
Okay.
nature is so beautifully made, right? That nature will let you know. Your taste buds will let you know, because you're a part of the nature, right? You are the ancestors. Your ancestors are not just your family lineages or human lineages, but includes all sentient beings and all elements, right? We are the soil, we are the sky, we are the rain drops, we are the air we breathe in, we are the trees. That's all our ancestors that's in us. So you can test yourself based on these minerals and know whether you're low or not. So if it tasted like water, if it's sweet, your nature, your inner nature is saying, hey, we could use some of this. We want this, but if it tastes really bitter and it's almost like disgusting to you and you just want to spit it out, then that's also a nature's way of saying, hey, we got enough of that. We're good to go.
Okay, good to know. Yeah.
Yeah. That's how ancestors knew which mushrooms to eat, right?
Yeah, that's true too. See, I take a lot of zinc in the winter. I find that winter to me is the time to use zinc. I find it more productive to my system in the wintertime, I guess, because I'm a smaller person too, and I get cold easier and that kind of thing. So when I take the zinc, I find that I don't have as much problems with that. And so winter to me is conducive of lots of zinc, Barbie, lots of zinc.
Yes.
Yeah. Looking at it this morning too, I went, yeah, you should start taking that now. It's funny. And same with vitamin C. As soon as September is, vitamin C is essential for the winter, right? You start taking it, overdosing it almost every day.
And vitamin D, D3, right? Because you live in a northern part of the hemisphere, so I need that. And a couple of things with the zinc. Coming back to the zinc, it isn't just about the immune system, but it's really important for hormonal balance. Like I said, it's important for your neurotransmitters, so your serotonin, your production of GABA, things to keep your brain going. The zinc is very, very important for that. It's used for so many things. So it's used to detoxify chemicals in your body. That's why zinc is so important for estrogen's health also, because they can detoxify some of the xenoestrogens out of your system. And then also zinc deficiencies. If you have zinc deficiencies, you're going to notice yourself prematurely aging. So you may begin to have lots of white hair show up, or dryness in your hair or skin also. Or you start to see your nails crack easily, chip very easily. Nails can get very thin. Sometimes you'll see a little, I call them little white stars on your nails, little specks on your nails. Those are the signs that your body's basically saying, hey, we're low on zinc and we could use some of that, so body's always communicating with us. It's our job to learn the language of the biology and physiology, because your doctors are not going to teach you that.
No,
doctors will look at your lab test, but in the lab test, I might be stepping into the zone that I probably shouldn't, but the fact is I'm going to. Is the blood test is just a snapshot of that moment. So we're not getting a full picture of who you were last month, who you are today, who you will become, we're not getting a full picture from that.
Right.
And so the blood test can really vary depending on how stressed out you were getting to the blood test place. Were you lying down when you're getting a blood test done? For instance, someone like me, I can actually faint very easily when I'm getting my blood drawn. So I have to lie down, but I've been to a blood draw before where they won't let me lie down. They just say, oh, just lean back on your chair. But what happens is that when I know my body and they don't listen to me, the results that come back will tend to have a higher cholesterol level and a higher LDL level, because sometimes those can spike when you're stressed while you're getting your blood drawn. So these are some of the things that as individuals, we need to educate ourselves so that we can begin to speak up for ourselves. Just as moon is speaking up really loudly to me. I need to reflect that courage and the light, and I need to speak up my light because I need to shine fully into this world. And that may start with getting to know your own body.
Yeah, no, that's amazing.
Excellent.
You have so much information.
Do you ever?
We-
My mind's going crazy too. But
Right.
could ask her about this, I could ask her about that. I guess another time we need to have you on here. That's what it is.
Yeah, share some more wealth of that you have, because you do, and some of that I knew and some I didn't, and so now
it's a
it
concept,
and
right?
it inspires a person to find that and become like I'm a big firm believer in being an advocate for our health and for our lives and the things that we should be doing and finding out about those. So I appreciate you saying that as well. And can you tell everybody where to find you?
Yes, so you can go to my name, masamicovey.com, and you can find all kinds of videos there. And I have a YouTube channel with the same name. So, and then a Facebook also. So Masami Covey, and then I'm the only Masami Covey on this earth so far.
Oh,
So
nice.
you won't have any issues finding me. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for being on our podcast. And we'd love to have you back to share
Yes.
more in the future. And
Lots of information
it's
moments.
been amazing. So
Thank
you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And
Thank you for having me.
yes, and everybody tune in next week.
You bet you should.